I'd like to introduce Paul Capece. He, like me, is a member of the Architectural Design Review Board of Garden City. We volunteer our time on a monthly basis to assess new construction in the village. At the same time, Paul is a registered architect like I am here in New York. He has his own firm in Manhattan. I'm now retired, but we have a lot in common, actually. And we worked on this presentation together. The way it's broken out, there is going to be a section on village zoning use, and that will be defining what the zoning ordinances seem to allow us to do and what is questionable. We'll go through a programming and blocking area where we'll take the building and break it into components and see what could possibly fit inside. And then we'll go to the site plan so we can assess the parking and the play areas surrounding the building. I'd just like to say when we started this exercise, we basically looked at three elements. One, the structural stability of the building. Two, the demographic breakdown of the village, what we need to respond to in terms of all the different age groups here in the village. And in doing so, I think we've come up with something that is pretty reasonable and very responsive to those needs. We don't want this to be taken as this is a fait accompli. It's not. It's basically a proposal for you to assess, review, and give us your feedback on. The word preliminary is very critical here, so I want to emphasize that. I'll pass it over to Paul now.
Thank you, Will. Like Will said, my name is Paul Capece. I'm an architect. I'm also a 13-year resident of the Village of Garden City. What I'm presenting right now is essentially a follow-up to what Peter had just outlined regarding parkland status and what Frank was speaking about when it comes to the uses. We looked into certain uses that we believe the village residents are interested in. And what I did is I put together a village zoning analysis and parking use analysis and parking analysis. The thing to keep in mind about this is we're talking about village zoning. If anything we're doing here does not comply with village zoning, there's always the option for variances. But much of what we're looking into is as of right in our zoning district, and in the zoning district, you'll see that as I go through this. This is the zoning analysis breakdown, but I simplified it into some simple bullet points, which will kind of make this easier. So, based on a preliminary review of the village zoning, on the left are things that we pretty clearly understand. The village zoning allows for public schools on the property. Items 1, 2, and 3. Public schools, nurseries, and greenhouses, as long as they're non-commercial. With nurseries and greenhouses, there are certain restrictions. Due to the size of the site, I don't see any of those restrictions causing a limitation or a real problem on our property. 3, public park, playground, parking field, all as of right as long as it's used for village or county purposes, which is the idea, and you'll see that when Will presents his portion. The next couple of items, 4 and 5, these are uses that are permitted with certain requirements. So recreation buildings customarily incidental to school or college use. They're permitted with approval of the Board of Trustees after a public hearing, public notice. If this was the decision and this is the direction we thought the village wanted to go in, there's no reason to believe that we couldn't get this approved. I can't say that. I'm not on the Board of Trustees, but if that's what the village wanted. Church, I mentioned church because as Joe showed slides of earlier, there is a chapel in this space right now, and the idea is that the chapel may be used for events in the future, maybe as part of ceremonies, whatever. So that's a use that could be permitted subject to approval by the Board of Appeals. One thing to keep in mind about the zoning is no structure in the zoning district shall be used or occupied by more than one principal use. So given the size and the scale of this project and the fact that we're trying to serve many constituents in the village, the idea is there will probably be many different or several different uses in the building. So this will be a mixed-use building, which likely will require a variance for that. The underlying zoning is an R20 zoning. That's the district. So it's a residential zoning that allows these things. But again, mixed use would typically not be allowed. Further investigation has to be conducted to really figure out how the parkland designation interacts with all of this. Again, we will dig down on that, and Peter will really be digging down on that and his group as we kind of flush out the program. Food services. Right now, there is food services in the building. It's incidental or accessory to the school use right now. If that were to be turned into a restaurant, more of a commercial restaurant or a catering hall, that would require a variance. That's my understanding, so we need to look into that more. And while many of these community uses that we're going to be presenting and that Will's going to be walking you through are permitted as of right, a community facility or a community center is not actually a permitted use or a stated permitted use in the district. So I'm just pointing to that. Again, many people here, I'm sure, have been through the variance process in their own house. This is the same sort of variance we'd be talking about, a village-level variance, not going up to state level or anything like that.
Okay, here's an image of St. Paul's. It's what we call an isometric. It basically has about 105,000 usable square feet. And it's a huge building, as you all know. Joe referred to it as U-shaped. I refer to it as an E-shaped because it has these three extensions. The thing, again, I want to emphasize are those three elements when we started this exercise. One, the structural stability of the building. Two, the zoning ordinances, what would be permitted. And three, the demographics of the village, the needs of the village. One thing I'd like to state right off the bat with regards to the uses. Because of the structural setup in the building right now, it gives an availability of spaces on either side of the corridor that are on average about 20 feet deep. And that does not facilitate any sort of athletic programs. So when you think of how we're responding to this building, you may say, there's no basketball courts, there's no this, that, and, we didn't think it was easily facilitated in this building. So I'd like to state that right off the bat. What is facilitated is basically this. We break down the building into three components: the east and the west wings and the center zone. And they're all approximately 35,000 square feet. The west wing, in its entirety, we are going to recommend in this exercise that we dedicate it to the Department of Recreation. The Department of Recreation right now is struggling in, I'd say, facilities that shouldn't have been there in the first place. In the cottages, it wasn't built for that purpose. The senior centers in the cottages, as well as the other one, are really limited in what they can do. And it's time to give them the flexibility and the space that the village demands on a daily basis. Cluett Hall, that we're using today as the town hall space, is used for so many different functions that they're employing their staff to take down and put together different scenarios. Constantly. And it's quite a strain on the facilities, and this would serve to alleviate that. The center zone we're dedicating more or less as a community center, for lack of another word. It basically will be accommodating multipurpose rooms that can house everything from exhibit halls to meeting rooms, reception areas, classrooms, if they want to have cooking classes or after school activity kind of functions, all can be accommodated there, as well as leisure space. And finally, the East Wing. The East Wing, we're suggesting in this exercise that it be dedicated to mixed uses. This one kind of goes to all the different age groups, from pre-K all the way to senior centers. And I think it also responds very favorably to the needs of the village. In breaking this down, again, we'll go with we color-coded this a little bit. Starting with the West Wing, it's shown in orange. This is where we have the reception area and the administration area as well, for the recreation department. We also have a large space. Let's see if I get over here. It's the only space in the building where the interior corridors are non-existent. So this is one broader space. And in that broad space, which is close to, I'm going to guesstimate about 50 linear feet in width, I think there's a possibility to accommodate a small auditorium. We can tier down to the floor below, so the seating can be tiered. And that would be a very exciting space for the recreation center. We're calling that the indoor theater. This area here is actually outside. It's between the West Wing and the center core of the building. And we're suggesting a bandshell type exterior theatrical performing arts area. And that's all done on the exterior. In good weather, it could really serve well. If we go to If we go to the center core, first floor again, we have the entrance atrium that I'm proposing an atrium to open up that grand staircase when you come in. And exhibit type spaces on either side. So if we have any sort of permanent or temporary collections, we want to show art programs from the schools, etc. They can all be housed there. The lower side here is currently the dining hall. That's the one with the Corinthian columns I described earlier. And to what degree that could be for food services should be investigated. Outside, on the other side of the E, is the possibility of creating an event garden, and that could work hand in glove with this community center. That's why we colored it in blue. The rest of this floor here is what we're terming an early learning center, and this is to accommodate the needs of the village with regards to very young kids. There'll be classrooms, administrative offices, an outdoor play garden outside. There'll be a drop-off, but here we're anticipating we could put a big playground for the kids. If you go to the basement, we'll start with the West Wing again. Here we have support facilities for that auditorium. There'll be changing rooms and locker rooms. There'll be a floating office there for admin and storage facilities accordingly. This slightly darker orange area is the tiered auditorium. So that's a 2-story auditorium. The community center below is composed of an existing kitchen that used to feed the school. They would feed from here upstairs to the dining hall. And a possibility of restoring that to some degree so it could service the building needs. It could also perhaps service, cooking classes for adults later. The gray is storage, mechanical, electrical, information technology. These are the core engineering rooms of the building. If we go over to the east side of the building, we have more classrooms, et cetera, for the kids. Going to the second floor, again, starting with the west wing, which in this instance we've dedicated to the Department of Recreation. Their dance and aerobics rooms are located in this area. Their music rooms are located here. These facilities can be expanded. And what's important here is, if you think about it, all the performing arts are taking place in these rooms. In the center core of the building, we have the chapel. We have access to that beautiful chapel. There's a series of large grand reception rooms there that could all be accommodating events. Or I propose we call them multi-purpose right now and see what needs evolve over time. Going to the east wing, this is where we create a senior center. Again, the east wing is mixed use. We started with an early learning center. On this floor now it's dedicated to the senior community here at Garden City, whether they have simply meeting rooms, game rooms, leisure rooms, possibility of physical therapy room, all this can be accommodated there. On the third floor, going back to the west wing, again, we had on the second floor, we had performing arts. We could have the fine arts program on this floor, and that'll be arts and crafts rooms. They'll also have the creation of a sculpture room, which there's a great demand for. And we have a fantastic science program that can be cultivated further by building a facility here for that purpose. If we go to the center core of the building, you have that chapel balcony, but again, there's a huge reception space there, and again, multi-purpose spaces. So depending on what kind of use for the community we want, maybe we dedicate it for game rooms or whatever. That is all up for grabs as to what we want to do with that space. If we go to the east wing once again, we now did, below we did the early learning center, then we did the senior center. Now we start attacking our teenagers. And we're proposing a STEM center, similar to what they have in Chaminade. This could have several labs dedicated to physics, chemistry, biology, natural sciences. The STEM lab itself will also have a science Olympiad zone. Robotics has become very, very important. I don't know if you know, but 2 Garden City students have become robotics champions, for lack of another word. And this is a growing field here in Garden City. So we have the possibility of accommodating that need here. There's also a need for a break space. These are teenagers. You know, they work, but then they break. And we have that here. Fourth floor. The fourth floor is a little bit peculiar. It's not a continuous floor. It breaks into separate areas. And while the building has 3 individual main entry points, one for the east, one for the west, and the center, these areas are only accessible from each wing of this building. So the west floor, we got a request, again, Department of Recreation, for a computer arcade kind of space for the kids. That's a growing demand, and I think we can accommodate them very well here. This portion here is storage. If we go to the center core of the building, this is again dedicated to teenagers, and we're suggesting a teen lounge of some sort, keep them off the street a little bit. Maybe they'll have ping pong, billiards, whatever. But it's a room for the teenagers to hang. There's also building security. We have to think in these terms, and I think putting it near the teen lounge probably makes a lot of sense. I have a teenage son. Finally, the STEM center below the top floor being high up, we're suggesting maybe they put some skylights in there and it becomes an indoor garden. We're allowed to do indoor planting here as long as it's non-commercial. And this could be a very interesting part of the STEM center. These gray areas are other pavilions in the building. One is a clock tower, which I'd like to see restored, and additional storage spaces. So I hope you found this compelling, and if you don't like it, that's fine. We need that input. If you do like it, we need your applause. We need your input. As simple as that. So I'm going to hand it back to Paul. He's going to talk about proposed parking and site planning for the site.
Thank you, Will. All right. So for this portion, we have the site plan. Everyone probably recognized this as the site of St. Paul's. We have the park, the ball fields, lacrosse and soccer to the left with baseball. The existing parking lot that runs along this area here. And then St. Paul's itself right here with Cluett Hall, where we are, and the field house behind it. I do want to just briefly thank Bill Kuhl for helping us. You'll notice, and he helped us with some inspiration for a landscape plan, a little landscape design for the playground facility, both the formal garden and the theater garden, I'll call it, as well as parking, a parking garden behind the building itself. So when it comes to the parking, one of the things we were tasked with doing was taking the use breakdown and the using study that Will has just presented and trying to figure out what a reasonable parking number of parking spaces would be, what the parking requirement is, what's the load. So what I did is I took those spaces, those square footages. I was very conservative meaning I would always round up, but the zoning tells us how many occupants there are per square footage of space, and the zoning also tells us how many parking spaces we need per occupant for different uses. So I went through all the uses, all of the spaces, and came up with a total parking requirement for this building of 650 parking spaces. That's a lot of spaces, but keep in mind that assumes that the building is being simultaneously used by all of these uses at the same time, which will never be the case. That is not how that's not how we're envisioning this building right now. In terms of the existing parking spaces, we currently have 240 something, I can't read that, but 240 something parking spaces right now. And, got it. Better. Well, there it is, 240 parking spaces. Those parking spaces, just so you can see, are basically along this access road. Back here, the main parking area by the existing playground, and towards the front of the building where most people have probably parked today. The idea is to take down the cottages that are behind the building right now that are not in very good shape. So a lot of that program will move its way into St. Paul's. And between where the cottages are and and St. Paul's itself is where we could build this more kind of manicured parking area that would be kind of tree-lined, a little bit nicer. And this would be the daily parking for St. Paul's use. And then back behind that would be kind of a denser parking field, and that's where we would really, try and tightly and efficiently fit as many cars as we can. The total count when we're done, we end up with 417 new parking spaces, which yields 657 parking spaces. So it hits our parking number, gives us a lot more parking spaces than we have right now. Again, this is preliminary. Again, an important thing is that we would have to, as we develop the program, as we develop what this building's going to be, it would be important to study the occupancy phasing, when we think different uses would be at maximum capacity, and how this would all be used. But it looks like, at first blush, we could accommodate the parking we would need with surface parking, which is really the most inexpensive way to handle this without giving up any ball fields or giving up anything of real value. So I think that's important.